The PC offers the most diverse collection of flight games you can imagine. And even very early in the life of the PC, you had control options to match the playing style for these flight games. They range from simple flight sticks to multi-control setups. Of course, there are users who go above and beyond and have full cockpits to get the ultimate experience. With MiSTer's AO486 core, you can hook up a USB flight stick and play some classic PC flight and space sims. AO486 supports the standard PC flight stick setup, which includes the flight stick, throttle, rudder, and 4 buttons. This setup was possible by combining both the 1 and 2 player joystick and buttons. Joystick 1 would be the flight stick or yoke. The Y-axis on joystick 2 would be used for the throttle, which will control your speed, and the X-axis on joystick 2 will be mapped to the rudder. This will control your side-to-side movement without rotating the aircraft. The 4 buttons, 2 from joystick 1 and another 2 from joystick 2, would be used for actions like shooting weapons and target selection. Controller manufacturers like CH Products and Thrustmaster also provided more advanced flight stick controllers with even more buttons, helping you depend less on the keyboard. But at the time of this video's release, these controllers are not supported in AO486. If they ever are supported, I will create a separate video for those controllers. On the standard flight stick setup, the 4 buttons available to you on the standard controls are not enough to control the aircrafts and flight sims. You still had to use the keyboard to access other functions, so it's advisable that you have the game's manual handy to see the full controls. Some games will provide quick reference cards and keyboard overlays that will tell you the keyboard controls at a glance. Unfortunately, flight stick support for many games will vary. Some would only support a flight stick, others will support the flight stick and throttle/rudder combo. You will have to test out your games to see what's supported. Okay, so with all that out the way, I will now test some games so you can get an idea on what to expect. Falcon 3.0 was arguably the best combat flight sim for its time. It was praised for its accurate flight model and avionics. That realism came at the cost of difficulty. You really needed to put in the time to get to grips with the game. You will be referencing the manual a lot on this one. To get the best experience from the game, you needed a high-end PC with a floating point unit. The developers really tried to immerse you in the game's world. There was a re-release in 1994 called Falcon Gold that included an instructional tutorial on aerial dogfighting. Falcon 3.0 was also the subject of several aftermarket books written by real F-16 pilots. This game makes use of the joystick, throttle, and rudder controls. Here's a tip to get this game running in AO486. Set the graphics details to minimum. The game kept crashing on me when I had the detail set to medium, high, or maximum. Probably the most popular flight sim series ever, Microsoft's Flight Simulator version 5 was the latest version to appear in DOS and the first version to use texture mapped graphics, giving the game a much more realistic look than the previous flat shaded graphics. This series is also known for its realism and computer gaming world set that Flight Simulator 5 is closer to simulating real life than ever before. The game was supported by many third-party developers that created new scenery, airplanes, and objects that would enhance your flight experience. This game makes use of the joystick, throttle, and rudder controls, but since this is a hardcore sim, it might take you a while to get used to the controls. I had no issues getting the game to run, but the frame rate left a lot to be desired. You will want to tweak the details to improve the frame rate. The PC was also home to many flight sims taking place in different time periods. Aces of the Pacific took place during World War II. It gives you the choice to choose a career path with the United States Army Air Forces, United States Navy, United States Marines, Imperial Japanese Army, or Imperial Japanese Navy. You can experience real historical missions like Pearl Harbor and Battle of Midway. The game was a commercial and critical success and impressed reviewers with its graphics and gameplay. This game makes use of the joystick, throttle, and rudder controls. I had no issues running the game and it played well in AO486. This is the game that I had the most enjoyment with because I prefer more of an arcade experience with my flight games. Descent was a revolutionary game for its time. It offered controls with 6 degrees of freedom in full 3D environments. Joystick, throttle, and rudder controls are fully implemented, and this game is a great showcase to show off those controls. The game automatically detects the throttle and rudder, and you are asked to calibrate them after you map them to some actions. The 6 degrees of freedom really makes you feel like you have full control of your ship. You are able to maneuver your ship in ways that real aircrafts can't. This game pushes the limits of AO46. I recommend putting the details at their lowest to get the best frame rate. Even then, it's not perfect. Now, not all games will support the throttle and rudder, which means you have to keep one hand on your keyboard to control your aircraft speed and to do certain maneuvering and other actions. Jetfighter 1 and 2 are games that do not make use of the throttle and rudder. Right now I'm playing Jetfighter 2. This series falls into the class of simcade. They are not as accessible as a game like Afterburner, but not as complicated as Falcon 3.0 or Flight Simulator. Jetfighter 1 came packaged with my first PC, and the smoothness of the 3D graphics really blew me away. Star Wars Xwing was a game that simulated the fictional experience of starfighter combat, while remaining faithful to the Star Wars movies, and it was a big hit. It won multiple awards and was the best-selling game of 1993. It's unfortunate though that Xwing for DOS did not support native throttle controllers, because the less you use the keyboard, the more immersive a game feels. Later re-releases of Xwing did add support, but if you want to play the original DOS game, you will have to use the keyboard for throttle controls. We're in luck though. There is a utility that will give you throttle support in Xwing and TIE Fighter. It's accomplished by mapping your throttle to the game's keyboard mappings. Unfortunately, that utility won't activate rudder controls on the joystick. I'll provide a link to the utility in the description. You will easily find out that the 4 action buttons of a standard PC flight stick are still not enough to give you full control of your aircraft. So you will still be depending on the keyboard for some crucial actions, especially with games that don't use throttle and rudder controls. In order to rely less on the keyboard, it is possible to map the extra buttons left over on your flight stick to the keyboard keys. This is done through AO46's button/key remap for game option. The only problem with this is that once you leave and reload AO486, all your mappings are lost. So if you plan on doing this, you will have to remap your buttons to keys every time you load up AO486. So as you can see, you can get authentic throttle and rudder controls in AO486 by using a controller like this Thrustmaster T-Flight Lotus 1. Due to limitations of standard PC joysticks of the time, you won't be able to use all the buttons. But if AO486 ever adds support for CH and Thrustmaster mappings, I'll create a video for those controls. Again, for guides on setting up MiSTer and AO46 for DOS flight games, check out part 2 of this video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and its bell icon so you can get notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.